Good morning, Conscious Living family. This is Angie Stewart, and I'm super happy to be here with all of you today. We are continuing the celebration of a Conscious Living anniversary. This month we will have many lectures to celebrate the 15th anniversary. This is a blessing. 15 years of hard work and distributing the beautiful message of our Master Jesus in this wonderful philosophy that's the Spiritism, and help so much all of us to understand our difficulties, to have a faith and strength to overcome it. So, to continue with this, I would like to invite all of you to start our initial reading, and then I will do a little prayer, and we will have our friend of today that will be giving us another great lecture. Okay, so I will start with this book, Our Daily Bread, and the chapter will be chapter 58. The title is To Contribute. Each man should give what he has decided in his heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. Paul and the Corinthians. When the affirmation given by Paul was divulged, informing that God loves a cheerful giver, many people solely remembered the material charity. Praise, however, was not only circumscribed to generous hands that distribute small donations of goodness to the needy and to those in pain. Naturally, all these demonstrations of love are recognized as divine, but we should note that the verb to contribute referred to it in the current lesson appears in all its grandeur. Cooperation in righteousness is a palpitating matter every day and everywhere. Any individual is capable of supplying it. It is not only the beggar who waits for it, but also the cradle where all experience is renewed, the family in which we purify our virtuous accomplishments, our neighbor, our brother in humanity, and the workplace which signals of our own individual achievements in our daily efforts. At the moment of the nocturnal rest, each heart can question itself regarding the quality of the collaboration in service, in the conversations, in the affective relationships, and in this or that preoccupation of everyday life. Let us be cautious of a sadness and sterilizing shadows. Ill will, complaints, dissatisfaction, and frivolities are not integrated in the kind of labor that the Lord expects from our activities in the world. Let us mobilize our resources optimistically, not forgetting that the Father loves the child that contributes with happiness. So, beautiful message from Our Daily Bread. So, starting with this beautiful message, I would like to invite all of you now, if you feel comfortable, to close your eyes, and then we are going to do our initial prayer. And then I will bring our dear friend Danielle to give the lecture for us today. Dear Lord, thank you so much for another morning of blessings. Thank you so much for this beautiful sun that's outside. Thank you for our body, our lives. Thank you for helping us throughout our difficulties. And today, we would like to thank you for bringing all of us here connected to conscious living, to continue our studies, our improvement. I would like also to ask for your blessings to our dear friend Daniel Assisi, so he will be able to be well connected with his guardian angel, helping him to demonstrate to all of us his studies and helping all of us to understand it, and most especially to be able to put in practice, renewing ourselves and continue our moral and intellectual improvement. Thank you so much. So be it. So, my friends, as I mentioned before, we are celebrating our 15th anniversary. So, Conscious Living is a teenager celebrating the 15th. And to do that, we are having great friends to join us. And today is one of them, our friend Daniel Assisi. Let me bring him. Hello, Daniel. How are you?
Hi, Angie. How are you doing?
So happy to have you here. We know each
Oh,
other for so many years.
oh, not happier than I am. It's such a wonderful celebration. I am honored and I am thrilled to be part of it. Congratulations, Conscious Living people. 15 years. That's amazing.
That's amazing, really. And that's really, really good. And more 15, another 15, and let's keep growing and keep spreading this beautiful philosophy. And thank you so much for helping us today. We are
Oh,
eager to listen to you.
oh, glad to celebrate this with you guys. Thanks for giving me the space.
Very, very good. So I will be here. Anything you need, just let me know.
All
Thank
right.
you, Danielle.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, everyone. First of all, thank you for having me. I say this every once in a while because it's true. But I am very thrilled to be here with you for two reasons. First, because we get to talk about Spiritism. And Spiritism is a wonderful thing. And Spiritism has given me two special gifts. The first one was a different perspective on life and everything, really, the universe, thinking differently, thinking more spiritually. And that has transformed my life. That's no doubt a huge gift. But the second gift was one that I did not expect, but yet it's a beautiful one as well. Spiritism has given me the pleasure of meeting wonderful people wherever we go that I would not have otherwise met were it not for our ability to come together and talk about these wonderful topics. And so I am very grateful and very excited to spend some time with you today because I consider all of you at the Spiritist group, the Conscious Living Spiritist group, to be part of that second gift. So thank you. And today we want to spend some time talking about an interesting topic as well. World crisis. Can we hope for better days? And I think it's a very timely topic, isn't it? Because after all, these past 2 years with COVID have really changed the way we go about our lives. I don't think that there is a single corner of this beautiful green earth that has not somehow been impacted by COVID-19 and has had to adapt in some way, shape, or form to a different perspective in living. Now, that has no doubt been hard, and we've lost close to 1 million people almost here in our country to this terrible illness. Not to count, of course, the rest of the world. But the truth is, friends, that this is not the only challenge that the world has been facing, right? I think we all know that even before COVID, we had many other challenges that we're still fighting. Sure, COVID just helps illustrate this health issue that we're having, but we have economic woes as well. People are struggling sometimes to make their ends meet. We certainly have political challenges with a lot of polarization and people having a really tough time listening to each other or trusting each other. We have also had challenges with climate change when we are really worried about how is the climate in our entire planet changing and how that would affect us. We also obviously have a lot of personal change as well. Many of us are contemplating our lives and with COVID or before COVID and are thinking, is there something else I should be doing? Am I in the right pace? Am I really in the right, job and relationship? So there's been a lot of bubbling and internal strife, which, like we said, can also be seen in the world out there today. We have movements for equity. We had a lot of strife with social and racial equity in general. And all of this has led many of us to be doubtful, to be somewhat questioning of whether the world is becoming a better place. And that's understandable in many ways because there are a lot of things changing. But nevertheless, we believe there is a lot of room for hope. And not just kind of hope that is naive and misguided, that just wants things to be better because we want them to be better, but because there is a reason or more than one to be hopeful. And so today, what we hope to talk to you guys about for a little bit is to see if we can understand a little bit more what it would mean to really have hope and where is this hope coming from and what can we do about it? How can we help the world become a better place? We are going to go for about 40 minutes, we think, unless I get really carried away, which happens sometimes if you know me and continue to talk. But I would very much welcome your interaction. I will very much welcome your participation. I want to take a quick moment to salute all our friends from different parts of the world who are tuning in today to celebrate this 15 years of conscious living, which is a great pun, right? Because the Conscious Living Spiritist group really is about helping us have some conscious living in our lives. So we're really excited about that. I want to send a shout out to our friend Bruce from Portland. I see JC from the Philippines. JC, good to see you. Thank you for being here. Hello, Juan. Hello, Carlos. And hello, all of you guys that are following us. And so please receive my welcome and warm hug here from San Diego. And I'm really thrilled to be here. But, we can go in many different directions to address this topic. And I'm sure that there's different approaches we can take. As I was thinking about this, though, I wanted to share with you a slightly different perspective that I hope you're going to be okay with. All right, so here we go. Let's do this. I want to tell you a little bit about this. So, what do you see when you look at this screen? What are your reactions? What are the first couple of things that you can understand and feel about what you're looking at? Well, if you're looking at it, you might be a little confused. You might not understand, why is it that Dan is showing me this picture of lots of different colorful dots? They don't seem to be very organized. They don't seem to be very structured. There does not seem to be a rhyme or reason why they're there. The colors are kind of nice, I guess, in a way, if you like them. But there seems to be quite a bit of chaos and disorder, right? But let me show you a different picture as well so we can compare them. How about this picture over here? Do you feel that perhaps a little bit more orderly, a little bit more beautiful? Well, yes, this wonderful picture here by the French painter George Seurat. It's a really special one in my heart, and I want to share with you a little bit about it. George Seurat was a French painter that went to war and then soon after came back and started to painting during the Impressionist time. So we are talking about the 1860s, 1870s here. And this wonderful picture that you see here is very different than the first one. You see a lot more order, right? You see people having a lovely stroll in the afternoon by the river, enjoying their Sunday. Some are in the shade, some are in the sun. And you can see that society is kind of going on. There's people swimming, there are people fishing, there's people lounging, there are kids running. and he seems to be like normal life. And I hope you like it as well. But here's an interesting thing about this picture. The first picture and the second picture are really the same picture. What you see on top is just a small, but very small patch or square from the waist of the woman that is fishing with a fishing rod there on the left of the other picture. You see that? So that picture on top is just a tiny little fraction of the one on the bottom. And why do I find it meaningful? Well, this one is specifically meaningful because it's revolutionary in many different ways. You see, the painter George Seurat here, right? And by the way, this is called A Sunday Afternoon on the Island of La Grande Jatte. And it was painted from 1884 to 1886 in the Neo-Impressionist style, which he kind of started. And he actually started his own artistic movement, or I should say, he started a movement, not his own, he didn't own it, called Pointillism, by which he painted by doing tiny little dots of color. So this entire picture at the bottom, which is a really big picture, by the way, it's about 7 feet by 10 feet. And it's currently at the Art Institute of Chicago. That's where he lives these days. And if you get to see it in person, it's a wonderful experience. But every little dot on that canvas was manually painted by the artist. And he did that in a very revolutionary way because, we generally don't think of, or at least not at that time, we didn't think of composing an image with tiny little dots. But once you look at it at the end, you barely register that these all are tiny little dots. You just think of the picture as a whole. You just think of the whole conception as a one big picture. And I find that in many different ways, that is exactly what we need here today. We need a different perspective because you can see this picture in different ways. You can take a step back if you were visiting the Art Institute of Chicago, and you can see this beautiful, huge 7 by 10 canvas with this lovely portrayal of life in Paris, in France, in the late 1900s, in the late 19th century. Or you can step really close to the canvas and look at those little dots that are in the top part. And in many different ways, I wonder, friends, if that's not what we are doing today. You see, I posit that what we really are doing today is just looking at the top picture. We're just looking at the different dots that we see there. And that's what life seems like us sometimes, like little dots that are just scattered without any rhyme or reason, that are just there, that don't seem to be part of anything else. Yet, when we take a step back, we do see the entire picture. We do see the entire work of art that is this wonderful canvas in general. And so when I say that because it might be a good framework for us to work with. It might be a good way for us to think about these times, these signs of the times that are happening right now. Because once we only look at those little dots, all we see are the individual movement of things. We only see COVID. We only see economic hardship. We only see political strife. We only see personal or individual suffering. We only see challenges with equity and race equality in general. They're there. We're not saying they're not there, but there is a bigger intelligence at play. And because of that, it becomes easier to reframe our times and understand what's going on. And when we reframe that and understand the underlying cause of things and see where they're going, it might be slightly easier for us to understand there are many reasons for us to be hopeful of what's happening today. So, Dan, that sounds very nice. That's, it could be potentially uplifting, but how do we know that for a fact? How do we know that that's the case? Well, that's a wonderful question. For us, who are a little fond, or maybe a lot, of Spiritism, we have a wonderful resource that points to that exact idea. And that, my friends, is the book Genesis, Miracles and Predictions According to Spiritism. It's one of those books that perhaps we don't read as often, and that kind of gathers a little bit of dust in our shelves. But in Genesis, as a matter of fact, at the end of the wonderful book, aptly named Miracles and Predictions According to Spiritism, because it explains all of these biblical predictions and so forth in a more rational and structured way. In the end of that book, we find a chapter called Sign of the Times. And in that, we have a beautiful essay of what's about to happen to Earth, or actually what's happening right now. It was what's about to happen back in the 1870s, but what is happening today for us. And that chapter starts with a simple idea. It says, the time set by God has come. We are told everywhere, everything points to that, in which great events will occur for the regeneration of humankind. And so the spirits and Kardec were telling us about 160 years ago that this time was coming, a time in which many different things are going to happen for the regeneration, for the rebirth, for the change, for the new, improvement of mankind. But they don't just say that. They talk a little bit more specifically of what would be happening for them, which is happening for us now. And they say, what to us seem like disturbances are partial or isolated movements that appear irregular to us only because our perception is limited. So basically they're saying, what looks like disturbances, what looks like mayhem, what looks like havoc, really are isolated movements for us. But really, when you think about it, they are only that because we cannot see the big picture, because we are too close to canvas. We are looking at George Soros' picture, so to say, and our nose is right there at the screen. So all we see is these isolated movements that appear irregular, but they're not. And that points us to the idea that if we're able to take some distance and think more clearly about this, we might see the big picture. But they don't stop there, fortunately for us. They do a couple of extra things here as well that are really interesting. They tell us this phase that we're going through right now is the indispensable supplement to the previous state, just as adulthood is a supplement to youth. That is to say, that we are growing as a society, we are growing as a humanity, and it's a necessary step, just like our teenage years are a necessary step to adulthood. This time, however, will not entail a partial change, a renewal limited to a certain area, people, or race. It will be an universal movement that will operate in the sense of moral progress. And that's tons of wisdom. That is tons of wisdom there, my friends, because we generally see a lot of strife and a lot of challenges, and we have seen that throughout our history. That happens in isolated moments. And we have war here, we have challenges over there, we have a country that's struggling here, one that's doing well over there. But this time, it's not just about these small pockets of trouble and challenge and growth. It's really everywhere. It's an universal movement, because the time has come for us as a whole, not just groups of people, the time for us as a whole to become adults, to move in from that teenage year phase of our lives to adulting, which is always very hard. And much like our teenage years, there's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of drama. There's a lot of, if you have a teenager or know a teenager, you know what I'm talking about. There's a lot of convolutions. There's a lot of change. And change is often hard because change requires us to step out of our comfort zone and do things in a way that we were not doing before. And sometimes that can be painful. And they go a little bit further too. Kardec continues to use his pen to tell us that, however, a change that is as radical as the one being prepared cannot be accomplished without commotion, which is what we're talking about. We are going to need this confusion. Things are going to happen because it's a big change. There will be an unavoidable struggle of ideas. Look at that. That is very kind wording for we are not going to get along. We are going to have different ideas and we're going to struggle with that. And I think that's sort of what's happening out there today, friends. We can't agree on anything. It's really hard. And we are writing ourselves off or other people off based on 5-minute interaction with them. We're labeling people. We are telling them that they are useless, that they're wrong, that they are crazy without even taking a moment to really dive deeper into their lives. And this commotion is part of this process. But here's the good news. From this struggle, temporary disturbances will inevitably arise. And this is what we're having. We're being temporarily disturbed by all these things until the ground is leveled and equilibrium is reestablished. Aha. So here's the good news, my friends. Equilibrium will be reestablished. This is a temporary phase, they say. Things are going to get better. The challenge is that we're so close to the canvas that we're only seeing the dots. So we need to kind of take a step back and try to figure that out so that we can have a sense of peace closer to us. But how do we do that? And how do we know that what they are saying is just not the opinion of another person? How do we know that this is just not Kardec being hopeful? What could we possibly do to really verify and put that idea to critical thinking to see if it really jives, if it really is what it is? That's actually a great question. So, but before we go forward, we're going to share with you a little bit that, if that is indeed the case, what they're saying, then we have a lot of reason to be really excited, almost as excited as that lady down there in the bottom corner, because this is just temporary. And that's a really good perspective for us to know. But how do we know? How can we possibly know then? Well, one of the things that we are very excited about today, talk to you about, is that we actually have known this for a little bit of time. Because through our studies in Spiritism, we have come to the conclusion that there is indeed a God. And if there is a God, then why would God simply set us in a moment in time where things are going awry and the world could go to hell in a handbasket, for lack of a better term? So if there really is a God, if there really is this intelligence, the superior intelligence, this ultimate intelligence that is the beginning and source of all things, and that is ultimately kind and wise and loving, and is obviously all-knowing, as we said. If there is such an intelligence, then why would that intelligence place us in a place and time where there is no hope, where there's no moving forward, when there is just the end of things as we are? It just doesn't make sense. It goes against the very idea of a God. So there has to be something else. And the good news is that we know about that too, because we have slowly building on the concept of evolution, physical evolution, but also spiritual evolution. And we know that through the ages, we come back into this physical world from our spiritual realm to exercise all the things that we need to learn and make this place a better place. So we've been diving into flesh. We've been coming to this planet for quite a long time to make things better. And in the process of doing that, we learn. But it comes a point, much like in our teenage years, that all this commotion is taking place. And so when we think about it this way, when we remember that there is a God and that there is a sense of evolution that we understand, we begin to kind of breathe a little bit easier. So give ourselves a little pat on the back and say, okay, I remember that. I remember there's God. I remember that we're constantly evolving. So this must be a temporary phase. But the really beautiful part of that, I think, and the reason why I like Spiritism so much, is because we know this not because somebody told us from 500 years ago or is a hopeful thought. We know this because we have been studying mediumship for the last 160 years as a group of people, as spiritists. And through this study of mediumship, which is nothing more than the ability to register the influence of the spiritual world, we have been able to communicate with the lives of the consciousness of those who have come before us. And they tell us about these things. And we are not asking just one spirit. We're asking many of them, many great and high spirits, and we're matching their responses to see. And I am extremely touched by the idea that they continue to reach out to us to give us that bigger perspective, to coach us, if you will, through this process of change, to remind us that we have our noses really close to that picture and that we need to take a step back and think about ourselves as spiritual beings. Because when we do, when we think of ourselves as spiritual beings, things change tremendously. And what do I mean about that? Well, think about it for a second with me here. If we are spiritual beings who are just temporarily here, present in this place and time, then even if we were to lose our physical bodies, which is something, let's be honest, we all fear and our society is really scared of, even if that were the case, even if tomorrow I were to shed this mortal coil, as Shakespeare would call it, as Hamlet would call it, if I were to leave this body behind, I would not cease to be. I would not stop being who I am. And while that might not be good news for you, because I would still be around and I would still probably come and tickle your feet at night, just kidding. The good news is that everything that I have worked for in this many incarnations would not cease to be either. And so our fears are tremendously overblown from a spiritual perspective, because who we are doesn't stop, much the same way that who the people that we love are doesn't cease to be either. And when you think about that, when you let that awareness kind of sink into your soul a little bit, you can say that all the love that you have been building in this life will continue on. Because you see, we don't stop loving those who are near and dear to us, even when they lose their physical bodies. Sometimes, in fact, we get sad because we love them so much that we cannot easily see them anymore, and we think that they are gone, but they're still there. Now, what we often forget is that they also do not forget about us, which means that they are loving us from the other side. We think so materialistically sometimes that we think that we're the ones who lost something and are missing them. And we forget that they have returned home. And in fact, over there in that spiritual realm, which is our true nature, they are more free and more able to love us. And we forget that the love that they have for us also has not died. As a matter of fact, we forget a lot of things. But once we think about this, we can begin to have a sense of the magnitude of hope that there is out there in the world, because they are working for us. They care for us too. And it's not only them. Because when we go back to what we have been studying, right? And we talked about evolution as well. When we go back to evolution, we remember that we have had many incarnations before this one, which means that we have had many fathers, mothers, sisters, brothers, cousins, friends, lovers, wives, husbands, pets, what have you. We have had the company of so many wonderful souls that have loved us so much and who have not stopped loving us, whatever they may be. The only difference is that we don't remember that that love is there for us. But it is. And so, in fact, the pool of love that we have is so huge. There are hundreds, thousands, if not millions of people who love us that we have interacted with. And that's a reassuring thing. And we know that because through mediumship, we can validate these ideas by talking to the people on the other side. And that is a wonderful perspective for us to keep in our hearts. It is a wonderful time for us to reflect on that and take stock of this moment. But for all of this to happen, we really ought to really kind of think about what is it that we really want to use as a lens for our lives. Let me give you a quick tip of what works really well for me. Yeah. So, for me, Spiritism is a wonderful lens to remind myself of that spiritual nature, because I struggle, I think, with many, like many of us, to really think about myself as a spiritual being on a daily basis. Sometimes we are so trapped by the challenges of the world, mentally speaking, I say, that we forget that we are that immortal spirit. We know that we are immortal spirits. We have been studying Spiritism. We have perhaps even experienced mediumistic occurrences or meetings. We have perhaps talked to the spirits, but we forgot about that. We forget about that fact during our daily lives when we are making, rent, when we are worried about our mortgages, when we're taking our kids to school. We forget that we are that spiritual essence. But if we were to remember who we are as spirits first, if we thought with our spiritual brains before we thought with our physical brains, we would breathe a little bit easier. And to do that, we need to exercise. We need to exercise our spiritual muscle. So the suggestion of the day is that we spend a little bit of time thinking about ourselves as that immortal spirit that we are. Because once we do, we begin to calm that inner storm within us that worry about the physical world. Because the worst thing that could happen to us, it's not our physical death. The worst thing that could happen to us perhaps is our indifference to the world. And it's the damage that we could do to a world that believes it's already struggling, when in fact it's just going through growing pains. So that's the call of the moment. Can we begin to put into practice all those things that we have been learning about, that we have been studying? Can we remember those beautiful words that are in the Genesis, that are in the Spirit's book, that are in the Bible, that are in many wonderful spiritually savvy and helpful books out there, regardless of denomination? All of them point to this idea that we are spiritual in nature. If we can begin to do that, then we shift not only our individual perspective, but that of the world itself. Because at the end of the day, friends, if you really think about this, the solution to this whole challenge really is us. The solution to this apparent chaos in the world is not some foreign government. It's not our own government. It's not our political party. It's not a scientist. It's not going to be any of those people. Although, of course, all those people could help. The solution to all this challenge is us. It's you. It's me. Because the moment that we begin to think differently, we change the world around us. In a roundabout way, what I'm trying to say, friends, is that our spiritual knowledge that has been gathered for thousands of years, and more specifically developed for the last 160 years through our systematic studies of spiritual communication with the consciousness of those who have lived before us and now tell us how things are on the other side and reassure us of who we are, that they too have made that journey and that they are okay. All of that points to the idea that it's about an individual effort to change our perspective. So, to kind of summarize, it's really about that cup of water, that glass of water. Is it half full or is it half empty? If we believe it's half empty, we are standing too close to the canvas. If we believe that it's half empty, we are missing a big picture. We're missing the fact that the water is already there and the air is there. We are failing to see the whole shebang, to use a technical term. Right? Now, if we believe it's half full, we have begun to take the step and understand that somebody had to put that water there for us. And that the water that's there, even though it's not completely full, can still quench our thirst. And it's more than what we need. And when we go about our days believing that we have more than what is enough for us, that we have somebody who has given us things to make sure that we are set off in a good direction, it's very reassuring. And it can change the way we act. When we leave our house thinking that we don't have any water, that the world is half empty, then our entire day is going to be guided by the idea that something is wrong, and then we just have to fend for ourselves. And if everybody fends for themselves without thinking about each other, we're in trouble, because we're just going to play to our baser instincts. We're just going to play into selfishness, which we know is the root cause of our challenges. On the other hand, if I believe that the water is half full, the glass is half full, and I leave my house in the morning, or telecommute these days, right? Because who's leaving the house? Not that many people. But if I telecommute to my Zoom meeting this morning and I feel gratitude in my heart, or I sometimes would like to say an attitude of gratitude, then my day is easier. My day is slightly more bearable because I've got what I need and I'm going to be okay. And by definition, when I'm okay, I'm better able to see perspectives. And maybe part of my day can also be lifting part of your day. And that's a wonderful feeling. So the question then becomes, what are we going to do? What are we going to do, and how are we going to act on this information that we know is credible, because we've been talking about for hundreds of years, and in the last 150 we have had better confirmation of the fact that we actually live on, and that there is actually a process here at play in our lives that will determine how we tackle the problems we do. How are we going to choose to look at the canvas ahead of us? Are we going to continue to sit up close and put our nose into the painting to see the little dots? Or are we going to take a step back so we can appreciate the bigger canvas? That's the question of the moment. That's the question of our lives. We are often worried about, what is the meaning of my life? What if the meaning of our life is to make meaning out of our lives and not just one specific thing? What if the meaning of our lives is not about one job, one relationship, or one thing? But what if the meaning of our lives is to develop this awareness that we are immortal beings? And how would your life shift if that were the case? Well, the good spirits have been whispering those inklings in our minds for thousands of years now, and more specifically and explicitly in the last couple of 100 years, to a point that they shook us up by moving tables all around the world so that we could begin to make sense of what was happening and begin that communication with them in a more systematic way back in the 1850s. And fast forward 160 years, 170 years later, here we are, asking ourselves, what's happening when we already know the answers? Of course, we can dive deeper and read, for instance, that wonderful chapter of the Genesis, which is a short one. You don't have to read the whole thing, but if you want to, go read Sign of the Times, reflect upon it, and then reflect upon your own spiritual nature. I say this half jokingly, but I think it's kind of true. Most of us might spend more time in our lifetimes brushing our teeth than thinking of ourselves as spiritual beings. Because brushing our teeth, we all do 2 minutes a day times 2, the morning and the afternoon, right? So at the end of the day, you spend about 4 or 5 minutes of your day brushing your teeth. But I'm not quite sure that I spend 5 minutes over my day thinking about myself as an immortal spirit, temporary journeying through this physical body to learn things and make this place a better place. And if I'm not putting the time into my spiritual self, who will? If I'm not putting the time into reflecting into my spiritual essence, then I can only expect the same suffering that I have experienced in the past. If I'm not doing anything different, is there really a different outcome at the end of the day? Are we waiting to be saved by something outside of ourselves? Are we just sitting here a little bit like prima donnas and divas and saying, somebody come please help, because I don't want to do anything. I'm just going to sit here. I think it's time for us to shift from that teenage perspective, as we had talked about, as the text and the signs of the time tells us, and step into adulthood, which is hard. But we got to pay our own spiritual rent here, my people. We've got to think about what are the challenges that we face and what are the things that we individually are going to do. And hopefully along the way, we can change our mental perspective to be grateful for what we have. Because the truth is, if all the things that we're talking about is true, it is also true that we have asked to be born and live in this moment in time. Now, how's that for a change? We have actually asked to be here, to be reincarnated in this moment in time. There's kind of a line out there, people, to come back to Earth. You can't just have everybody coming back at once. But we have asked to be here, and we have prepared ourselves for many lifetimes to be faced with the challenges that we are facing now. And we would only be put into this game, right? Our coach would only put us in if our coach had confidence that we could do the job. And we can, and hence we are. So is there ways, is there a reason for hope? Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's not just naive thinking. It's what we have learned. For hundreds of years now, we've known that these times are going to come. And we asked to be in here in this clutch moment to make that difference, not only in our lives, but that of others. And we have had chance after chance to make a difference. And so I'm feeling very hopeful because I know you are in the world. And when you do something wonderful in the world, it benefits me. And when I do something good in the world, it benefits you. A rising tide lifts all boats. And that's perhaps one of the lessons that we ought to live by, which is nobody wins until everybody wins. Maybe we have to break these different paradigms that we have in our minds that we're competing with each other all the time because we don't have enough. Maybe we have to shift to the spiritual perspective. Maybe we have to use our spiritual minds as opposed to our physical brains and think about what is it that benefits me spiritually the most. And if you begin to do that, be forewarned that something in your life is going to change. It's going to be a wonderful journey because you're going to begin to change in ways that perhaps you didn't expect. You're going to feel yourself a little bit more hopeful, even in the middle of a pandemic. You're going to feel yourself a little bit more loved than you were before, because you know that love is always there for you. And you're going to be more loving too. You might surprise yourself of how calm and tranquil you may feel in the moment of tough anguish. It does not mean that pain's not going to be there. It's still going to be there, right? But you're going to be able to navigate through that a lot better. And that's a fascinating thing when you start to look at yourself and how you are reacting to the world and say, wow, I think that 20 years ago, I might not have taken this course of action, but now I do. And if you find yourself doing any of these things and others, maybe that's a good indication that you have already become that hope in the world that we all know, that you have taken into your heart, those teachings that you have laboriously taken in week after week as you study by yourself, as you go into your Spiritist group, as you talk about these matters. You're exercising that muscle. You're spending some time thinking about who you truly are and how you want to change yourself. And if that's not reason for hope, then what could be? We know that we don't go away. We know that love in our lives is always present. We know that we can change ourselves, and we know that we can make an impact in the world. Wow, what a powerful moment. And last but not least, because I know I'm talking a lot and I'd love to hear from you, especially because there's so many wonderful people here. I see the comments by Bruce. I see the comments by my wonderful friend Susanna as well. Last but not least, let me use a very practical example that I hope resonates with you. 15 years ago, a group of you decided that you wanted to do something for yourselves and for the world around us. And so you said, maybe not in this many words, what if we came together every once in a while? What if we set aside some of the time that we have to be with our families, to entertain ourselves? What if we sacrifice a little bit of that to build a place where you can come together as a group to talk about the most important questions there have ever been? Is there a God? What happens to us? Who are we truly? What does spirituality look like? How does that change our lives? What if we did that and asked for no payment in return? What if along the way we invited more people to be part of the journey? What if we made new friends and spent more time and sacrificed more of our personal time to make a dent in the world? 15 years later, here you are, celebrating Conscious Living Spiritus Group's 15th anniversary. That's not a small task. In a world where we are oftentimes too close to the canvas to see that there's beautiful things happening, when we only notice the shellfish and brute acts, we sometimes fail to take a step back to see that in the larger canvas, there are wonderful things happening, and one that's staring you in your face. You are part of a group that's dedicated to the betterment of humankind through the help of individuals, through the learning and enlightenment of individual persons, so that we can live consciously, so that we can live spiritually, so we can lead with our better selves, our better halves. What a wonderful moment, and what a wonderful contribution you have made into the world. And I'm so happy and so thrilled and so proud to call myself your friends. And I'm in awe of the wonderful things that you have done, that you are doing, and that you will continue to do. And I think we can end with just a simple quote for an incredible messenger of spirituality in general. Francis. He said, "All the darkness in the world cannot extinguish the light of a single candle." And that is true. And while I think that Conscious Living Spiritus Group is more than a single candle, I can only marvel at the amount of light that it produces, that all of you individually and together can produce. Now, the question is, will we continue to sit too close to the canvas to see it? Or will we take a step back to look at the bigger picture and to really understand the beauty of what's at play and what's happening right here? So, happy birthday. Happy birthday, Conscious Living people. I continue to be your fan, and I hope that you continue to carry out all your wonderful activities and studies for another 150 years. Why ask for just 15? Let's ask for 150, right? Because we know that love never ends, and we can dream a little bit bigger too. So congratulations. Happy birthday. Happy anniversary. And whatever it is that you individually are going through life, remember that you're not alone, and that you have this group to support you. And what a wonderful thing it is. So are there reasons to be hopeful in the middle of a war crisis? Absolutely. As a matter of fact, when we think spiritually, there aren't any reasons not to be. So thanks for your patience today. Thanks for listening to me. And I'll turn it back over to you to see if we have questions or comments, if you want to be part of the conversation. Angie, back to you at the studio.
Hey, Daniel, thank you so much. Beautiful, very beautiful the way you approached helping all of us to understand there is always light at the end of the tunnel. And let's always see our bottle half full. This is so, so important. So, my friends, right now we have a few minutes, and we would like to invite all of you, if you would like to ask a question, to make comments, just to participate. And we will be so happy to be able to understand your questions and then to answer it. But until they do something, then. So, what can we do? Like, for example, everything you said is so beautiful and powerful, but many times we have conversations with people and they are still very negative, and they still say, you say all this, but I don't believe. What can we do to help this person?
Great question. I think that, from my perspective, I think that the most important thing that we can do is not let ourselves be contaminated by that kind of energy, right? Because sometimes we don't even realize that because we're not consciously living, right? To use that wonderful term. And sometimes we talk to people and they are not so helpful. They're not so hopeful, right? and they're a little bit negative. And we understand that we want to give them the space to do that. People are allowed to feel what they feel. Let's just be clear, right? We are not judging what people feel or anything like that. But we do have a choice of what is it that we do with that input. And if people are really negative, then the first thing we do, kind of like in the airplanes, first we put the oxygen mask in ourselves before we can help others, right? So the first thing we do is to make sure that we don't let ourselves be taken by that, because sometimes we do. Sometimes people say things and we let that in. We let that into our souls. We let that into our emotions. And that means that we drag ourselves down. We get ourselves off our game and we begin to change perspectives. So I think the first thing we do is not change our perspective if we're not prepared to do it, if we're not consciously doing it. So be mindful of where your emotions are and where your thoughts are. That's a really hard thing to begin with. But that's about ourselves. And what do we do for others? Well, truth is, we can talk to them. We can offer a good word, but we cannot change people. We just can't. We can offer our best, like we said. We can suggest that there is a reason for hope. We can show them different facts, but they may still choose not to accept it. And that's okay, because we do that too, right? Yeah. But what we can do is just continue to act in a positive way, because there's no way, my friends, that this world gets better by everybody moping around. It's just not going to happen, right? If you're just going to carry yourself from day to day complaining about the world, guess what? You're still going to have that kind of experience anyways. You're going to be trapped in that very thing that you don't want. If you don't like negativity, if you don't like the anger of the world, the frustration of the world, then don't be part of it. Opt out. Right? Say, I'm going to make my own universe. You're going to live here, but you can make your own universe. And I think that's a wonderful thing that we want to help people, but we also have to respect that we can't always change them, but we can work on ourselves. The only thing we can control, and barely, is ourselves, right? So let's focus on that, and everything else comes. We're not responsible for other people's lives, but we are responsible for our own, and we are responsible for the contribution we make into this world. So if somebody is really bringing you down, I'm sorry to hear that. But remember, you have a choice of how you're going to behave and how you're going to accept or not that relationship in your life, and what kind of power you're going to give to those feelings, within yourself. That'll be my perspective, Angie. That's a great question, though.
No, it is totally true. Totally true. We cannot change people. We can tell them our opinion and respect their opinion. But exactly as you said, we cannot allow ourselves to be contaminated by their negativity, their anger, whatever feelings that are not positive. And, we have to protect ourselves too from this energy that is surrounding us. So it's very important that we take a few minutes to pray for ourselves and to pray also for this person, because unfortunately right now this person is so negative, but maybe when this person goes to sleep, her guardian angel can come and give her some positive insight, and we were able to plant the seed with our positive attitude and conversation. So this is totally true. Totally
and
true.
If not, we did our best, right?
Exactly.
And if we can't change it, right? We did our best. We put our best foot forward. That's all we can do.
Exactly. Right? We have to continue doing our best. That's the main thing. And negativity will come. Problems will come. Difficulties will come. But we have to do like Chico Xavier said, everything shall pass. The good times and also the bad times. So we have to continue, and trying always our best. Our improvement is spreading the good word, as you were doing.
And we have another reason to be hopeful. We have survived 100% of our bad days. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm talking about many lifetimes here, right? And I think all of us might have had like a really difficult challenge in the world that was really tough at the moment. But later on, we said, you know what? That tough situation was actually really good for me. I learned a ton, and I would never have done X or Y had it not been this, right? And so I think when we take that higher perspective, we might realize that we're going to be okay. You
Yeah.
have survived 100% of your bad days, and you will survive 100% of your future bad days because you have them too, right?
Yes, no, totally true. And as everything in life, the pandemic is and was a super, super hard time, but even that brought the challenges that we were able to overcome, and we were able to continue our lives. And one of them is this here, this live
Yes.
interaction that we can have. You are in California, we are here in Miami, and also so many other people were able to continue working using this type of tools. So, like for example, my company, in the past they didn't really like people working from home, and now they are super happy. Yes, work from home. So things that happen to change the perspective, even the from the businesses. So everything
Yeah.
will work out. We have to be strong.
Yes. Yes. And we're learning tons of things, like you said, right? We learned a lot of things, I think, through this pandemic, and I continue to learn. Like, we are hopefully valuing human interaction more than we did before, right? Before, we couldn't stand people. I don't want to see so and so again, or my family. And now we're like, oh, I miss you. I'm counting the days when I can fly again and give you a hug. I'm like, that wasn't the case about 4 years ago. I remember, right?
Yes. Yes, so everything changed, and now we are eager to be able to see people. Oh my god, soon, soon.
Soon, not on Zoom, right?
Yeah.
Soon, not Zoom.
Exactly,
Yeah.
in person. So, Danielle, thank you so much. It was really, really good, very enlightening, and helped us all so much. And it's a wonderful way to be able to celebrate our 15 years anniversary with one talk from yourself. So, thank you so much for your participation.
Well, thank you for having me, and happy birthday, conscious living people. Happy birthday. I hope you take 1 minute to realize of how wonderful and how many hours you've put into giving back to the world through
Yes.
this group. Really great.
Definitely, definitely. So just finalizing with this message from JC. So then I'm always thankful for the inspiring insights delivered in your clear and easy understand manner. I appreciate the platform CLSG. Thank you, JC.
Thank
You
you,
see
JC. Isn't it wonderful, Angie? Just to kind of wrap up, right? On my end, because I keep talking a mile an hour. Isn't it wonderful? Like you were just saying this, we now have these virtual platforms. We can have JC at our meetings, and he's not exactly close, right?
exactly.
What a blessing! What a blessing to have JC in our meetings. JC, is great to see you, right? I see Bruce. I think Bruce is in Oregon as well, right? There's all these different places that are getting activated that we're connecting through this wonderful platforms. Yes, we wish we
Exactly.
would be in the same room together, but hey, at least it's not radio silence, right? At least we can see each other. What a wonderful thing.
Yeah, and I think that that will be the future, no? Even when all the centers open and we will be meeting in person, I think we will still manage to have something online because we can embrace our other friends that can't be physically with us. I think this is
Yeah.
one of the good things that the pandemic brought to us in our near future.
Where's my like button so I can press that and go +1, Angie? +1.
Very good, Dan. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you.
So I will put you in the background right now just to do our final prayer. Thank you, my friend. God bless you.
God bless you.
So, my friends, with this banquet of light, I would like to invite all of you now to our closing prayer. So, we will be able to come back here again next week to continue and continue our beautiful celebration of our 15 years. So, God, our Mother and Father, thank you so much for bringing us all together. Thank you so much for helping us to open up our minds to understand this beautiful message. And at this time, we would like to ask for you to help us to continue with this positiveness, with all this good vibration surrounding our physical body, and helping us to live with it, spreading this love, spreading these good vibrations to all the people that we will be meeting throughout this week. And I also would like to send these good vibrations to all the places around this planet that are still with so many difficulties, not just COVID, but diseases, hunger, and all other difficulties. Please, Master Jesus, send your love, your good vibrations, so they can benefit from it and they can have this seed planted in their hearts, and their hope and faith can be stronger. And sooner or later, these difficulties will be overcome. Thank you so much. So be it. So, my friends from Conscious Living, thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend, and we hope to see you again next Sunday or during the week when we have other lectures. Thank you so much. God bless you all. Happy birthday, Conscious Living. Bye.